Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our virtual program, Lecture Me. My name is Lucy. I work at the Mississauga Library, and I'm your moderator this evening. If you're having any technical difficulties, please message my colleague, Elizabeth. Tonight, our program is the use of VR and AI in local and global classrooms with Professor Liz Colson from University of Toronto at Mississauga Department of Language Studies. In this talk, we will imagine the futuristic classroom while reflecting on the warnings and cautions from the founders of the technologies themselves. We'll learn about current research to assess immersive technologies as they're used to support vulnerable learners and the promise of AI and VR environments as a safe training space. I'm going to start by reading the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the lands which constitute the present-day city of Mississauga as being part of the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and Wyandot nations. We recognize these peoples and their ancestors as peoples who inhabited these lands since time immemorial. The city of Mississauga is home to many global Indigenous peoples. As a municipality, the City of Mississauga is actively working towards reconciliation by confronting our past and our present, providing space for Indigenous peoples within their territory, to recognize and uphold their treaty rights, and to support Indigenous peoples. We formally recognize the Anishinaabe origins of our name and continue to make Mississauga a safe space for all Indigenous peoples. Now, here's a really quick overview of WebEx features. This evening, we'll be using the Q&A feature of WebEx. If you look at the bottom right hand of your screen, you'll see three little dots, and if you click on those, then you can click on Q&A. Please respond to all panelists when you're sharing a question. I'll be monitoring the questions that you put out there, and they will become part of the program at the official Q&A at the end of Professor Colson's lecture. Closed captioning is enabled for this program. You can turn captioning on or off by clicking on the CC button in the bottom left-hand corner, indicated here by a yellow rectangle. Once the captioning is turned on, you're also able to adjust the font size or change the background color to light or dark by clicking on the three dots at the end of the black bar that will appear. The box in the middle with the green arrows is for reactions. You can let us know how you feel about what's being shared. Please feel free to interact. And now some library information. Many of the 24/7 digital services offered by Mississauga Library are available for free with your library card and also available from your home at mississaugalibrary.ca. We offer a large collection of ebooks and audiobooks through Libby by Overdrive and Hoopla. Hoopla also offers music, movies, TV shows, and comics. You can access digital magazines through Flipster and RB Digital for magazines. Press Reader has newspapers from all over the world in more than 60 languages. Free downloadable and streamable music is available through Freegal, and you can learn a huge selection of languages on Mango Languages. LinkedIn Learning offers opportunities to learn all kinds of new skills, everything from 3D animation to finance to writing skills. Please visit our website or call us for details. Our library newsletters are a nice way to find out what's happening at the library and other interesting news. Sign up for weekly newsletters so you can learn more about our upcoming programs and services. We'll be moving Lecture Me live to the newly renovated Hazel McCallion Central Library in 2024. Join us on February 6th for a talk on protecting the prairies with Professor Andrea Olive. Canada's grassland prairie ecosystem is iconic but under threat. This talk is based on her new book, Protecting the Prairies, and it explores the history of grassland conservation through the life of a farmer turned politician turned conservationist. Our March lecture will be Pain and the Social Brain with Professor Lauren Martin. We'll learn how human health is linked to psychological and social factors within an individual's environment. Dr. Martin will discuss recent work examining pain responses and how they're changed by the presence of another individual and the brain circuits that control these changes. Our April lecture will be the big one, The Where, When, and How Bad of Earthquake Science with Professor Lindsay Schonbaum. We'll explore how and how well we can predict the location and timing of earthquakes. We'll discover what makes some earthquakes so deadly. And in case you're wondering, yes, a major earthquake is possible in southern Ontario. Come find out more so you can be prepared for the next big one. I'll be back for the Q&A session after the lecture, but now I'll turn the mic over to James Malinowski from UTM to introduce tonight's speaker.
Thank you, Lucy. Good evening, everyone. In collaboration with the Mississauga Library System, we thank you for attending tonight's third Lecture Me talk of the 2023-24 season. My name is James Malinowski, and I am the Community Engagement Officer in the Experiential Education Unit within the Office of the Vice Principal, Academic and Dean at UTM. It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, Professor Elizabeth Liz Coulson, from the Department of Language Studies, who will be delivering a talk entitled Going Glocal, Affordance in the Use of VR and AI as Teacher and Leadership Training Tools in Local and Global Classrooms. Professor Coulson is Assistant Professor and Coordinator of the Education Studies minor program at UTM. For close to a decade, Dr. Coulson served in a leadership role in the initial teacher education program at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, where she was also the liaison to the Ministry of Education. She earned her PhD in education from Western University, where her dissertation focused on the application of new technologies in teaching and learning contexts. As the adoption curve of ChatGPT, OpenAI, and language models rapidly accelerates, Dr. Coulson's ongoing research explores design principles and practices to ensure human values, needs, and learning styles remain central to the curriculum design process. Her current research project, which concentrates on delivering technology-enhanced programs to newcomer communities, offers insights about the risks and opportunities involved at this pivotal moment in education. Over to you, Professor Coulson.
Thank you, James. Just making sure everyone can hear me okay? Great. I'm so honored to be part of this Lecture Me series and delighted to be here tonight to meet and greet with you all and also share some of the exciting research we're doing at the University of Toronto, Mississauga in our Language Studies department. I see some familiar faces from our Experiential Learning Unit, and a big shout out to my colleagues who work so hard on some of the things we are going to be talking about this evening. So just to know who the participants are in the room, if you have a moment while I'm opening my PowerPoint to, in the Q&A, click on participants, I believe, and just share with us where you're coming in from and any technologies that you prioritized in your day today that you might have been using. So for me, it might have been WebEx because we were checking out how to get onto WebEx, because today we're going to talk about how the tools we use affect our lives and how the tools we use can be optimized, studied, researched as we utilize them in our either teaching or leadership roles. I'm coming at this conversation as a teacher and an educator and a leader of a program that helps students who want to be teacher educators or they're looking for that pathway. So that's the angle I will take on some of the things we're discussing tonight. And again, delighted. I'm a longtime library card. I have a library card still from back in the day at the Milton Public Library, and love everything about the library system. So even more special for me to be here for that reason. So yeah, in the Q&A, if you could light it up with some things about you all, I will open my slideshow so we can get started. And here we are. And Lucy, feel free to interrupt if there's anything that comes forward in the Q&A about the people in the room. All right, just move my slide ahead here. So I want to acknowledge, first of all, the department that I work in. So the Language Studies department includes professors and world-class experts from fields like linguistics, computational linguistics, language, and myself in education, and my colleague, Jiyoung. We're very excited to work with the Language Studies department because it's really helped us in education to learn about some of the techniques and practices in research to not just test technologies like we sometimes do. We put on the VR headset or we try ChatGPT, for example, but to actually create an infrastructure to help teachers really think about their practice and deepen their practice. So I'm grateful to the many professors, and these are just a few of them, who have been so supportive of the work that we do in education studies. In our department, we have many languages spoken and we have many languages taught. So any of you in the audience today, you're thinking that you would like to jump in and learn a new language, certainly come and see us in the Language Studies Department. And if you ever need to reach out to me, of course, I'm sure my information will be shared. I'd love to connect with you on some of the work that we are doing. So just a little bit about our program, just to give you a bit of context on the research project I'm about to describe. So you can see from this chart right here, students that are coming out of high school have the opportunity to join us in an education program that's a minor program in undergrad and includes some opportunity for them to learn about how to become teachers or leaders through various lenses. And you can kind of see from the different pathways that we've developed. So we have the educator pathway, the activist pathway, and the innovator pathway, that we are looking at different ways to engage in the classroom as a leader or as a teacher. So some of the courses that are associated with the work we're doing tonight kind of fall on the innovator side. So I'm going to be talking about the future of EdTech and some of the work we're doing in technology, but also talking about our design thinking course, which allows students to look into technology more deeply. So just so you have an idea of our program. We also have courses in Indigenous education, Black education, and other avenues like research opportunities where they support the program I'm about to describe. So we've divided our opportunities for undergrad students into three major projects that we're working on right now. One is called the EDS Incubator, and we've just named it that because it's a place where we play with technology and we try new things. So it goes global and it goes local. So just to give you an example, we used our technology to host an internship in Ecuador. This was during COVID times, where our students actually taught courses. They taught with fellow teachers in Quito, Ecuador, and had an opportunity to do an 100-hour internship using Zoom technology in that case. So we have different ways of testing the technology, and I just wanted to highlight that our work is both local and global, which is exciting. We've also taken students to India, we've taken students to Portugal recently, and have opportunities for them to travel in person as well. We have something called the Learning Shed, and this may interest many of you who want to join us on campus. The Learning Shed is a place where people that are long out of their career, so they may be well out of retirement, can come and work with 20-year-olds on different types of research projects. So we work together, so our elders and our young people in undergrad work together on different projects, and we also introduce activities to each other. So for example, we had a knitting class, we have things like that going on to also build connections and reduce loneliness. And we're studying this as a mechanism for support within the university right now. And then finally, our Innovate Ed. This is what I'm going to be talking about mostly today. This is our way of addressing some of the changes and looking at kind of what I would call the wild west of ChatGPT and other AI and VR technologies that exist right now, where we're pacing ahead very quickly into some new technologies. And it's exciting, but it's also scary. So we're trying to figure out what is it we need to think about and what should we pay attention to as we work with these new technologies. I really invite you all, as you're listening, to actually sign up for a ChatGPT account if you haven't already. And you'll see the link there at the bottom, chatopenai.com. And as you're listening in, it would be a nice opportunity, if you haven't used ChatGPT already, to let us know what you think of it as you go through. I also really encourage you to use your icons to respond, emojis to respond to anything that we discuss. So maybe I'll just talk to Lucy for a moment. Lucy, if you're with us, how far along are you with ChatGPT use? Have you been using it at the library?
The only thing we've done at our library right now is our staff created a murder mystery.
Oh, nice.
So it was our chance to just play with it and see what it did. So a month before Halloween, we started the murder mystery and we displayed the final results on Halloween.
That was
Um,
amazing. How did you use ChatGPT for that?
um, well, it was quite formulaic. I wasn't actually
Yeah.
I wasn't the leader of the project, but we plugged in all our names and we let it create a story about us, and we decided who would be the victim and who would be the evil one.
Right. The clue game
Yeah,
happening.
it was just just a way to familiarize ourselves with this new technology.
Fantastic. That sounds great. Yeah, so I'd like to share some AI and VR uses that we have been working on in the domain of professional development, and then provide you with some case studies and engagement activities that will help you to kind of see how it's used. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A. I do want to acknowledge the beautiful land that we're on at UTM campus. If you haven't been to our campus yet, please drop in. You can see we're surrounded by such beautiful wooded areas, and it's just a lovely place to work. And we have a beautiful building that's brand new and has new technologies as well that I'll share with you today. So I wanted to start with an elevator story. You know, there's always good things that happen on the elevators. There's some story you hear, some little tidbit. So imagine me, I was 20 years old. It was in the 1990s, and I was riding up on an elevator, and I noticed on the elevator was a friend of mine from high school. And this friend of mine, I said, "Oh, how are you? What's happening?" And he said to me, "Actually, I'm in computer science and I'm taking some courses on a new thing called the internet." And that certainly dates me for sure. But as I got off the elevator, I was thinking, "Oh, what's the internet?" And I remember that so vividly in my mind. A couple months later, I remember sending my first email. And I remember the feeling, and many of you will remember this as well, the feeling of that proximity to someone. I remember I had a friend living in Scotland, sent the first email to them, and thought, oh my goodness, I didn't have to get my stamp, I didn't have to get my envelope. And here I am connecting with this really good friend so instantly. And I was hooked, just like technology hooks us in so many different ways. And I think as I think about Chat GPT and I think about AI, I think we're in one of those moments again, another elevator ride, where it's such an important time. The person that I rode the elevator with ended up creating a cloud computing electronic medical records company that's, I believe, one of the biggest in Canada. And he has completely transformed the way that we do medical records, and it's quite amazing what happened there. So I'm thinking of all our young students who are now in their 20s riding those elevators and thinking about the use of GPT and other AI domains, and just wondering to myself, what will their elevators of the future look like? And you see in the right-hand side, as we have the advent of VR and AI, lots of interesting things happening. Lucy, have you ever used VR before, virtual reality? You might be on mute still.
I'm sorry, I should keep myself up if you could ask me questions. No, I've never done VR. So this is my first time really thinking about it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll share a little bit about what we've been up to. So some people think of AI, they think immediately into sort of mechatronics and robots and those kinds of things. And certainly we know that robots are starting to work alongside people. For example, at Amazon, you've seen models of that coming out right now, humanoid robots lifting things and designing things. But what we're talking about on the AI domain today is the Chat GPT that is mentioned. So I kind of think of ChatGPT almost like a group of friends. This is how I try to visualize it for myself, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm certainly not coming at this from a computer science perspective. I'm coming as a teacher using some of the wonderful tools that have been developed, but also cautiously using them. So a group of friends, I want to ask them a question about how to go on a camping trip. And it's an aggregate of many friends coming together with opinions, and ChatGPT organizes those opinions about how to pack for a camping trip or whatever it might be. However, we know that lots of people coming in on a topic and having an opinion can also go south. There could be a bad rumor that develops. We don't know what could happen with that data. So we're always using the tool cautiously and thinking about it as a disinformation tool as well. So it really is, if you haven't tried it yet, a very fascinating way to learn, but a very challenging way a challenging thing to think about if we're not on the tech side of things. So I was watching a TVO episode, and they were interviewing a few scholars about ChatGPT. And in the moment of the interview, they asked ChatGPT, "What are you?" And ChatGPT responded, "In the field of artificial intelligence, a new technology has emerged that promises to change the way we interact with computers. Developed by OpenAI, is a language model that has been trained on unprecedented amounts of conversational text. The result is a system that can understand and respond to prompts in a way that is eerily similar to a human." So let's keep looking and understanding where we're seeing AI in our everyday lives. So many of you may have a virtual assistant. So you might have an Alexa or a Siri in your house, or you use your nav systems. At the University of Toronto, we have something called Navi, which is a chat bot where you can ask questions. And so you can type in on your computer to basically a chat bot on the other side answering some questions for you. We, of course, use our voice to text regularly on our phones. We see plagiarism checking and grammar auto-correcting mechanisms that we use, and it's certainly permeating our everyday lives. Lucy, do you have a virtual assistant in your home? Do you have anything going on with AI in your life?
No, we're very low tech at our house.
Yeah, so different people have different adoptions for different reasons, of course, and we understand that as educators as well. So this is a diffusion curve, and this kind of helps us think about students in our classrooms and also teachers when we're looking at this from a professional training point of view. And you may think about a technology that you have recently purchased or something that you bought, and why did you buy it? And are you ahead of the curve, or are you an early majority person? Where do you fall? So just take a minute and kindly think of a technology that you have purchased or adopted recently, and where do you think you fall in terms of the timeline of when everybody has it versus just you, kind of thing? And maybe Lucy, if there's anything you can think of, you can share it with us as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I thought of myself as a very early adopter. So in the early 90s, I was working with the internet when you still had to log in this crazy old-fashioned way. And I considered myself to be really high tech because not a lot of people knew what I was talking about when I talked about the internet. So the company that I worked with, we were moving from information on CDs to information on the internet. And it was exciting, heady days. But since then, I've come to the library. And when I came to the library, I thought the library was quite backwards in a lot of technology. But now we're creeping up and we're gaining technology. And I feel like I'm just sort of climbing to keep up with it all because there's so
Yeah,
much
and
happening.
it's certainly exciting.
Mhm.
Yes, for anybody that reads or writes or does anything in their career or their job where you need to communicate, which is pretty much 95, 100% of us, we know that ChatGPT is transforming some of the work we are doing. It's almost like we have a personal assistant in some way because we can ask it questions and we can ask it advice. It's certainly not a sentient being, but it's giving us something to think about anyway. So yeah, it's important for us to think about where we are on the diffusion curve, and as an educator, also think about why I might delay and not adopt something, and the critical eye that I might have on certain things coming forward as well. So we're also looking at virtual reality. So the project that we have been working on is with newcomer Canadians. And one of my priorities as a professor is to always think about where can we use technology for the betterment of a social of society, really. Like that's a principle that I try to follow, is how can we use it as a tool and make sure that our tools that we create don't harm us, because we hear that statement that the tools that we use say a lot about who we are, right? So it's very important to continue to think about that. So you may have heard of 3D and 4D worlds, and you may have noticed in the news a lot of talk about training with virtual reality headsets, where a lot of talk that you might read about is in medicine, where they often will insert short modules or longer modules into training, where medical people that are enrolled in medical education have opportunities to simulate situations in a low risk environment of VR. So we were very interested in, can we simulate situations for language learning that make it less stressful for someone that's new to a language? So if you think back, if any of you have come to Canada and you know you had to learn English very quickly, you were trying to find employment, you had bills to pay, you had family to support, and your children may have been in an English school, you understand the drive and passion that you had toward learning the language that to function in your daily life. So we were looking for opportunities. Can we speed that up in some way? Can we support in some way by using 3D environments? You may have also heard of 4D environments. Maybe when you went to Disney World, you put on 3D headsets and then you felt things in real time coming at you. There's all kinds of iterations as we move forward with this kind of technology. And there's some challenges as well. So I got really inspired by virtual reality because one of our professors, Dr. Paul Alexander, was doing a really neat project called a lesson study. So he was working out of the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. And what he was doing, I'll just move forward to his slide, is he was asking questions about, just like in medical school where you might do a simulation, let's say of removing a gallbladder, could we do a simulation of a teacher in a 3D world where we observe, let's say we're training for a teacher to become a teacher, and we want to learn about the techniques to work with, let's say, a student with an exceptionality, or we wanted to learn techniques for teaching a particular subject area, maybe organic chemistry or something in the chemistry domain, for example. And so you can put, as an educator, you can put your headset on and you can watch another teacher instruct in the virtual world from your home or wherever you're using your VR headset. And while you're in that setting, and this is why I got so excited because I was part of the study, I was one of his participants in the study, is just like your winding chair that I'm in right now, my office chair, I could watch the teacher in 3D and turn and look at what the other participants in the class, the live class that was recorded, were doing. And I could analyze all the different interactions in the classroom. And it just gave us so many more layers of insight for teaching. Because oftentimes I've been involved in teacher education forever. It seems forever. I'm getting up there. But oftentimes we go into the classroom and we focus only on the teacher and we're very busy writing reports up of the teacher. And we don't have that time to turn and look and see what's happening with the students in the classroom. So it's another whole domain for looking at those kinds of experiences. And think about your own work for a moment. Is there a training that you could do in a VR headset that would enhance the learning for someone that you're trying to train for your particular job or occupation as well? And it can speed those things up for sure. My son is in mechanical engineering and he's working with VR headsets. He has been working with VR headsets in the past to look inside machines and to really understand what's going on inside the machine. They've been able to get cameras within certain parts of the machine, and it's just a really good knowledge tool as well. So there's lots of places at universities studying this work. The Stanford AI Lab is one example where they're doing a lot of work. The MIT, if you look on the MIT website, you can go and find AI work there, as well as virtual reality. Berkeley, artificial intelligence research is happening, as well as in our programs at the University of Toronto. We have so many things going on in both AI and virtual reality. Very exciting time. And again, think about that elevator ride. We're on this next elevator, and where are we going to go with it? Think of all the changes that have occurred since the internet came into play. And now, where are we now and what's next? It's very exciting to think about for sure. So this is just another photo of Paul's work. So you can see there's classroom photos of how the 360 camera he used was situated. You can also see in the photos here that there's little hand controllers where you can click and look around the room. So very excited to see some of his research come to light and to be used as well. Thank you to Paul for allowing me to share those slides. So we have to ask ourselves, are we in a watershed moment? So is there a new tributary, a new stream coming forward? Or do we think ChatGPT and VR are just kind of nifty tools? So I was showing the Roomba. I don't know if anybody has a Roomba at home where you clean your house and let the thing roam around? Is it a nifty tool? Where are we in these moments? So I grew up with a father who fixed everything. So you did not throw anything away. He has a workshop full of every tool you could ever dream of. And so I would say that I grew up with someone that was taught me how to tinker in the garage. And this sort of idea that what humans create, humans can fix. But I also know that our tools can hurt us. Like I think about a saw. If you don't put your safety glasses on and you don't understand how to use a saw, it's not the tool that you want to use. So this conversation today is really how do we open up the floor? How do we start to think about the tools that we're using? So our research project involved partnering with the Syrian Canadian Foundation. And they're a wonderful local organization started by two women who have worked tirelessly to help newcomers coming into Canada. And they came into my office 7 years ago and they said, hey, we'd like to start a program to support newcomers where your students help our newcomers coming in. It was just like a perfect pairing because I knew our students wanted to get teaching experience and their participants needed some help with English language and getting cultural experiences in Canada. And so we were so delighted to be partners with them, and we have been for 7 years. We began just as a traditional kind of English language program, and we iterated into testing new technologies together. So the idea was brought to us by the Syrian Canadian Foundation to apply for a government grant, and we applied and we received grant funding to get started in our project. So I'm just going to share a short clip that will kind of give you a quick and brief overview of what we've been up to. Hopefully your sound works. I'll just play a second, and Lucy, if you could give me a thumbs up, that would be great.
The Engaged program is
We're
a
hearing
virtual
it, yes.
reality and artificial intelligence language training program designed to integrate technology into education. This research-based project will deliver English classes while applying 3 different learning methods. One is the traditional classroom, where a group of students will learn from a teacher. 2 is the virtual reality technology using simulated scenarios from real life displayed on a VR headset. And 3, learning through artificial intelligence, where students can communicate and practice with a virtual human. Using this engaging new format for teaching and learning, we can further support newcomers in improving their language skills through interaction and immersion. These classes focus on improving conversational skills, practicing real-life scenarios, and building confidence in speaking English. We have made these classes free for students with an English level of 3, 4, or 5. We are encouraging newcomers to register now and join us in taking the first step towards the future of learning through technology.
Yeah, and that just a shout out to Rayanne, who's been the project manager with me. We've been on this project for 2 years now, and we just finished serving almost 100 newcomer Canadians, and we were delighted to do so. So just a little bit about our process as we were trying to figure out how to use this technology with newcomers. So the first thing is we had to go through a process with our students. So I invited many students from the university onto the project. And we have ROP courses. So we have research courses where our students can participate as researchers. And it's such a great opportunity for them to get a little bit of insight into what goes into one of these projects. So they were right on the ground floor with us. And they were helping us decide what kind of technology we were going to use. And by that, I mean, what we were going to use in the VR headsets as the scenarios for people to view and to interact with when they speak English using the VR headsets. So we had to go through feasibility studies, look at the advantages of different technologies. We had to compare and contrast different opportunities and different businesses, thinking about any partnerships. There was a lot involved in even that step of figuring that out, and also assessing the risk. So did we have to worry about, for example, participants getting dizzy? I know I was always thinking about if I'm bringing newcomers onto our campus, do I want to then put headsets on them and not have them interact with each other. So we had to figure out a schedule where the interaction was there in person, but then we also had moments, 20-minute segments where they went onto the VR headsets. So those kinds of things were in our minds. Triability, relative advantage, complexity, feasibility. Again, these were all choice-making activities that we went through. We also, and I got this from this is a wonderful little document that talks about bridging the gap. And we also had to keep our eye on ethics as we were developing these kinds of things. And this is for AI and VR. How did we avoid things like plagiarism? How did we think about who owns the content? So if we're using an outsource from another company, do they own all the materials that we've developed, or do we own them, for example? And were they reliable? So we were working in a 2-year program where we were offering 8 different courses. And would that technology be reliable for us? The bias, security and privacy, transparency. So you can see there was a lot to think about in using this technology from the professor point of view, from the student point of view, and from our participant learner point of view as well. But that didn't stop us because we were just too excited about new technology and trying it. As much as we get daunted sometimes by the barriers and the challenges, we also want to push forward a little bit and not be too frightened by it. So you can see here, there's lots of venture capital coming in. This is from Impact and Opportunities on Canada's AI ecosystem. But you can see here, Ontario is certainly leading the way in the development of VC, venture capital investments around some of these new technologies we've been discussing. So I want to anchor back for a minute to the research design. So one of the things that I mentioned early on is how do we think about technology through the human being and through human-centered design? So one of the areas of study that I really work hard in is an area called empathy. So it's helping students, because I teach courses in conflict resolution and equity and diversity studies, we do a lot of work trying to help students step into each other's shoes and to see each other as human beings and respect each other and respect human dignity. So part of the work that we wanted to do was always continue to look at what are the principles of human-centered design. And I saw it in 2 ways. We wanted to build empathy among our students and learners, but we also wanted technology that was not hard to use, that you could put it on and it didn't matter how old you were or how young you are or what your technology experience is, it would be easy for you to be part of. So those were factors we also had to consider in the research. I love, if you ever get a chance to read the work of Dr. Garfield Ginny Newman, I love when he talks about the wonder-driven classrooms. And this is something I used to work with the Critical Thinking Consortium. And what they do is they go into schools and they help teachers to consider how to integrate meaningful activities that support critical thinking. And in this day and age, with everything going on with technology, are we not so implored right now to make sure that we work in that way? But Garfield Ginny Newman also talks about wonder-driven classrooms. And he talks about how schools have an obligation to solve meaningful problems. And so when we were developing our AI and virtual reality activities, we really did want to solve problems for our learners. First of all, we knew that they were new to Canada, and we wanted to provide as many pathways as we could to learning English, but also to gaining the work-ready skills that they needed, those kinds of things. But more importantly, driving their curiosity to learn and to be excited by learning and to want to participate in meaningful problems. So those were things we also had in mind, was this wonder-driven classroom. And we just kept asking ourselves, how are we embracing VR and AI across Canadian schools? And what will be the shockwaves of AI in teaching and learning context? So when I was in California, I remember people told me, don't get too close to that ocean in Laguna Beach because it's very rough. And I got into my ankles, and all of a sudden I turned my back on the ocean, which you never do. And there was a massive wave that, even though I was only up to my ankles, I got sucked in and back into the ocean. And that's how it can feel sometimes when you're starting in with a new technology. It's sort of this back and forward flow. You feel like you're getting onto the shore, and then you get sucked into a problem or a difficulty. So we kept continuing to look for ways that we could have resilience as we move through the new technologies, but also create these affordances that would help people and get people excited about learning. Even the founder of OpenAI says that we need to be a little bit scared. I think he even used those words, that he is scared. So you know when the founder is scared that you need to think about the warning labels on any new technologies. So let me stop for a minute and just ask Lucy again, if she doesn't mind commenting. Lucy, you've been probably hearing about all of this on the news and some of the issues and worries about new technologies. Is there anything in particular that you're concerned about?
I'm always amazed at how negative all the conversations have been about AI. And that's why we did that exercise at the library. Let's just write a murder mystery. It's a tool that we have to get used to. I've sort of lost what the question was and why I'm wandering on now. Did
Yeah,
I
no, I
answer the
just
question?
wondered if, yeah, I think you've mentioned it. I know you're saying that it can, for you, it's not a negative experience yet. It's been positive, I think, because you've tried it once. Is there anything you're worried about more broadly about AI and VR, anything you hear about? And if you don't have an answer, that's fine too.
Well, actually, I'm going to go to the Q&A because at the very beginning of this lecture, somebody asked about how critical thinking can be evaluated when it's possible to write essays with AI.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
the
that's such a
loss of
great
critical
question.
thinking, and you've just talked about critical thinking too. We want critical thinking to be enhanced by AI.
Exactly.
What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on that?
I can give an example. So I was mentioning I teach a critical th or sorry, a conflict resolution course, and I had the students last night, and I was thinking about my topic was negotiation, and I wanted them to think of themselves as diplomats negotiating, but I also wanted them to think in their current context. 20-year-olds going out into the workplace, they might have to soon negotiate a salary, for example. So the way that I tiered the lesson was first I had them negotiate with a partner and they had scenarios and they also each had their own kind of setup of sort of the money that they'd be asking for on the employer and employee side. But then I asked a third party to get involved, and that third party was AI. So after they negotiated with each other, they invited AI to solve the negotiation with them. So they typed in prompts, and one of the things we want to do in AI is also help our students become good prompt engineers, meaning that they're phrasing questions to AI that really help them to learn. And that's a whole skill and critical thinking process in itself. So using AI, they then watched how AI would answer how AI would go through the negotiation. And then they had a template where they could look for things that we've been taught about negotiation within the chat GPT response. And not just accept it as is, but also analyze, is chat GPT a good negotiator and why? And they can have a criteria that they use to evaluate chat GPT as well. I hope that answers a little bit of like with one example anyway.
Yeah, there's another great fear, and that's the manipulation of photographs and
Yes.
videos.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of
Those
our
are all
audience members
concerns.
raised this, yeah.
For sure, for sure. I asked ChatGPT to tell us why we should be scared or worried. So ChatGPT said, "No, you shouldn't be worried about me or any AI like me taking over the world. I'm just a tool that can be used for various purposes, and my behavior is determined by how I am programmed and the data I have been trained on." So there's one flag right there. So we have to ask ourselves, which databases is AI pulling from? Whose voices are in that database, and are they coming from one bent or another bent, and how am I being swayed from the information that I'm getting back from my AI? So that's why I think we'll start to see many different AIs arise. It could be a library AI, it could be a university AI. I think we'll start to see different databases of AI arise. That's already happening. But then AI even warns us. Oh, ChatGPT even warns us. However, it's important for society to have discussions and regulations in place to address the ethical and security concerns surrounding AI. So I used the term Wild West early on in my talk because really we're in one of those Wild West moments. There's not a lot of regulation around things right now, but we see it coming down very quickly because at the university level, we're starting to see that students are utilizing ChatGPT for essays and papers, but they're not using it in the way I was describing. Sometimes it happens that they're pulling things, or that could happen. I'm not saying they're all doing that, but there might be no knowledge or limited knowledge at this point around policies, and that's the reason why, for example. So look at all the startups happening. This is in Canada, so we see things are growing in our economy with this tool as well. So interesting to see what's happening. Certainly our hubs, like for example, the Mars Center downtown Toronto is an innovation hub where AI is very predominant in healthcare, for example. And Waterloo, we have lots of things happening in Waterloo with technology. It's a technology hub as well. So things that AI helped me to understand we should be concerned about, I asked, was AI bias and poor results, concerns regarding the ethical risks, concerns about the potential for bias, again, that's re-emphasized, eliminating jobs through automation, although not everybody's upset about that one, and concerned about the potential for AI to be misused or to manipulate thinking and behavior. One example I read about is that perhaps a country could purchase an older version of an AI and then create what they want the AI to talk about and say. And that could be used as a powerful tool for manipulation in terms of how we think. So manipulating our thinking. So again, these are all the kinds of things that we need to think about. And what's interesting is the logo for ChatGPT is the sign of infinity. And I think that's what's challenging about this technology is it really can go to infinity in terms of its power. And that's where we need to make sure that the tools we use don't harm us. So we need to be careful. Here's a few pictures from our research project. These are scenarios within the different VR settings. I'm not sure if these were our actual scenarios, but just some examples to show you what it would look like. So if a learner is visiting a healthcare setting, for example, or they're doing a job interview practice, they would meet with they would meet each other actually in this space, and they would talk to each other. So if you went in, Lucy, with me, we would actually see each other in the VR space, and we'd be able to have conversations and work on projects together. Here's an image of our last cohort that we served, celebrating our final end of the project. So almost 100 newcomers served. And again, we're just looking for people and teacher mediated kind of formats. And what I mean by people is I don't want to lose sight of who Lucy is because I end up on a VR machine with her for 3 hours. I want to work with Lucy, and then together we test tools and enjoy tools together, but it certainly doesn't dominate our relationship. That's not a mediator in our relationships. So yeah, Deloitte says the challenge is that the growth of these new technologies is outpacing our regulators' efforts to guide their use. So again, we need to think about that as well. I'm just going to show one little clip here to show you another example of how VR is being used.
It is for the students. This technology, not only does it work from an educational point of view, they're excited to use it. They want to keep using it. They want to come back. They keep using it. Sometimes we want them to go away, but they're still there. It is astonishingly good. It's exceeded my expectations.
Students love VR, they love computers, they love games, and it sort of brings the fun side to having a job interview.
My favourite moment was the breathing exercises and the Superman power pose that we did.
Basically puts you in the situation without the embarrassment, so you can feel free to battle your own problems before actually facing it.
I love that comment because that's really what we were trying to do in the newcomer program as well, is reduce the intimidation that you might have speaking a new language. So Lucy, how many languages do you speak? Do you speak any others than English?
I speak parts of 2 other languages, yes.
Yeah, which ones, if you don't mind sharing?
German, which was my mother tongue, and French.
Das ist gut. Yeah, so you can imagine if you're moving into a new place and you're trying to speak fluently in that language, if you had a chance to rehearse beforehand in a non-intimidating environment, it may be useful to you as well as you're learning. Just move on here. So yeah, we're moving away from this the books that we used to use as teachers to help us come up with speaking activities and applying them in a new context and hoping that the results are effective. So I just want to, I know we're getting close to the question and answer time. And I just wanted to ask again, how can we strengthen AI fluency in schools? And how can we invest in scalable AI opportunities that are ethical? Those are some questions that our research is leading us to. And just to finalize, I wanted to share the approach that we use traditionally in our design thinking class. I'll just move this forward so we can see it all. But what we do is we have our students help us look at technologies. So we teach a class and we start the class by having the students do an empathetic interview with some of our participants, either in our studies or new participants who are using a different technology or a new technology. And they do an interview that helps them then to define a problem that they have synthesized from some of the data that they've collected in their empathetic interview. Once they've defined the problem, they go through an ideation phase with that problem, and they come up with multiple solutions that they then prototype. So they actually make a physical prototype of something to help us understand how it might be used, and then they test it. So what we're trying to do is integrate our research that we're doing outside of class time with some of then to bring that research into the students in the design thinking course that we have or the research course that we have. So again, it's that fluid integration and infrastructure for helping students work on research projects that we're also so excited about as we use technologies. And again, we're trying to solve these wicked big problems, and sorry for the shock of these photos. But we know there's so many things like homelessness, like war that we're all hearing about, and we don't know what to do. And these are opportunities for us to engage our students in working on problems that are complex, no clear solution, important, and also difficult to define sometimes. So things that we're definitely trying to do. These slides were just to show you that we have so many different languages spoken in our beautiful country. But India, I was looking at India's languages, has many, many more. And all over the world, we have an opportunity to use tools to help with language and communication. And we're excited at the University of Toronto, Mississauga Department of Language Studies to be working on so many different projects, not just this one, but on dialects and on slang and all these different projects that we hope we can continue to share with our community, and we hope we can get our community involved. So I know we're very close to our Q&A period now, and I just want to thank Lucy for being a co-host with me on this discussion today. I'm going to close my screen so we can see each other again. And I want to thank you for inviting me to chat about our research.
There we go. Thank you very much for that lecture. My takeaway from all of this, and I'm waiting for some questions to appear because we've incorporated questions, but there's got to be some new ones coming in. My takeaway from all this is the positivity and the excitement about learning using AI. A lot of people only hear negative things about AI, and it's wonderful to hear positive things about it. The number one thing I wrote down on my little piece of paper was keep it human.
Yes, keep it human for sure. And I think what we're excited to share back with you is we're just currently collecting all the research that we generated from the project. So we did a couple things. We did semi-structured interviews. We recorded the VR activities. We also recorded the AI. So when the students were using ChatGPT, we actually recorded their prompts and we're able to look at those prompts. And then we did something called illicit imitation, where the students spoke into their phone and recorded into an app their response to different sentences at the very beginning of the program and at the very end. So we're just in process of going through. Our students are doing a wonderful job cleaning that data and getting it ready for us to analyze. So I'm so excited. I hope I can share back our results with you, Lucy, about some of these technologies.
Oh, we'd love to have you come back and talk some more about this.
Sure.
Are there any questions from the audience? Because I'm not really seeing anything. I think people are just sort of like, oh, wow.
They're probably on ChatGPT and learning more than I could ever teach them.
Yeah, they may have sort of taken that big leap into
For
another
sure.
world.
I hope
Just
they
this
did. Yeah. Yeah, it was a delight to be part of it. And if any of the other panelists that are with us from OISE or from U of T have any other questions, please feel free to ask.
Liz, I have a question for you. How do we get around the challenge of, I guess, cost and accessibility with VR equipment in the classroom? Like I know small scale, it might be feasible, but you only servicing a small number of students that way. So just what are your thoughts in terms of accessibility around that technology and how we can really make an impact with it?
Yeah, I really struggled with that because I was drawing from all kinds of different funds trying to figure out how to purchase those headsets, and you know how fast they turn over into a new version. So you almost feel like the minute you buy technology, it's outdated anyway. So I would say that would be the number one problem and issue that we would need to solve. I know we have a new program coming forward in, I believe it's called the gaming. I'm sorry, I don't have the full title, but it's gaming technologies is what I understand. And perhaps there could be a stable place where there would be many VR headsets for access for all. In a kind of maker space where people can enjoy using the technology. But until that's funded, I think it's unrealistic to expect that we're going to see VR headsets used regularly in all classrooms. And I feel very privileged to even have had the opportunity to make this leap into VR and understand it more. And the reason I got excited about it is because I was in Las Vegas and someone put a headset on me many years ago, and the symphony orchestra was playing from Japan. And I was just mesmerized because I could go around and see all the instruments playing and be right up close to some of the beautiful artists that were performing. And I thought, wow, this is a new experience. If I was a musician wanting to watch the bow hold of a professional musician and understand that, what could VR open for me? So yeah, very limiting cost wise for that. Much less so for AI though.
That's an amazing concept, just walking in around the musicians and watching them play.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We do have a few more minutes that we can take questions or conversations, but there's nothing coming up right now.
I think I just saw one that I might have missed. It said, in your opinion, could AI ever create a new lingo or language?
Oh,
Oh, interesting. I definitely can see that happen. You can already see we didn't know the word chat GPT until this was released. What's the new chat? I think there's a new one. Is it Grinko? Can someone help me? Grinko is being released by or just was released by Elon Musk. So he also has his own chat GPT version. So that's a new word. And then I think we'll just see a whole new set of vocabularies arising around this. We certainly hear it in the 20s generation. They've got their own lingos and language that translates over into some of this technology as well. I'm just thinking of things like short forms, like LOL, lots of laughs, those kinds of things that have come up.
things are moving very fast in technology. Joanne, who asked the question, first of all, about critical thinking, I believe, she's saying, she's echoing what I've been saying about it's so nice to see AI and VR in a positive light and not something that we need to be scared of.
Yeah.
But she points out that it's important that current teachers get the training, not just new ones who are young and at school, but the ones who are currently out there already
I
who can
totally
be
agree. Yeah.
therapists. Yeah.
I think what's great about our research project is we made so many mistakes that we're hoping that what we write up, we can say like, please don't do this. You're going to go through a lot of pain if you program the VR this way or you do AI this way. So that to me has been one of the most important parts of our work for teachers is that we're going to bring that knowledge back to them of what we have learned. And so many teachers are also involved in action research in their own classes. And it's exciting to share back and forth in the field as well.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on using assisted learning with AI for kids with learning disabilities?
I just think it's so fantastic. We have a student who actually developed a game on VR. I'm not sure if it was on VR, but I think it was Roblox actually for grade one students with exceptionalities. And it just took off, and I was so proud of him. Shen, if you're watching, shout out to you for that work. But there's so many things that our young students in university can be part of, especially those that are good at programming and working in code and so forth, to help with that particular group of learners that are very deserving of extra support. And I can definitely see VR classrooms and so forth being useful to them. The only problem with VR, though, is you can get dizzy. So I always worry about students that do have health issues or whatever it might be, that putting that headset on might bother them. So it's definitely not a perfect setup always, but very good for many that don't have that problem.
Yeah. Sarah is interested in your newcomer Canadians and in learning English, and she's asking what were the key skills and takeaways for the participants that you're aware of?
Yeah, we were really lucky because we had 2 OCT, so Ontario Certified Teachers, teaching one, like we would run them at the same time. One would be a VR class and one would be a standard class. And we're comparing the data and experiences right now. So far, we've just done the first set of data analysis. And I think what people are feeling is we did achieve the connectivity I'm talking about, where they felt like they had people to rely on and connect with after the course was over, which was one of our priorities. But they also saw growth in their language skills, particularly in the VR class so far. We haven't looked at all the data from AI. So I'm happy to report that back as soon as we get our articles written. We've got timelines for February, and I'm excited to share that back as we know a little bit more. But overall, a very positive response about the setup and the structure that we used for this particular research.
Do you have any future plans for using AI and VR?
I'm excited about a new company that it's called Groupthink, and they're just getting started. But what they do is, in my role as a program coordinator, we will often have a lot of meetings that are hard to track the content of. And what you can do with Groupthink is you can invite in an AI, and this seems a little bit difficult because of privacy concerns, but I want to try it maybe in a meeting where we're not worried about confidential information. And you can invite the AI in, it listens in, and it collects bullet points of all your meeting notes, and it saves it in a secure location. So anybody coming back to the meeting or missed the meeting, you've got an AI assistant helping you. So I'm really interested, is there an assistant that can help me do some of the more difficult tasks that you just don't have time for, like meeting minutes, and eliminate some of that paperwork without it also being an unsecure kind of situation. So you can see the 2 sides of that for sure.
Oh, and I instantly thought of when you're in some sort of training and you go into these breakout groups
Mhm.
and you're just riffing off each other and you're trying to think of ideas. If you had AI involved in that,
Right. And all your
noting
good
all the
ideas
stuff.
would not be lost.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure. For sure.
Mhm. Fascinating.
Great.
I think we might be at the end of the questions again. This is your last chance, audience, to ask a question. Um,
And audience, if you're interested in our shed events, which I mentioned are for young people and elders to come together, please reach out to me. We will be hosting an event in February, and we have music, we have food, we get together, and we just have a great time. So I hope you'll join us for that. And maybe we could have one at the library. That would be a nice location for it.
mhm. Right. Okay. I think we're done with the question part of this. I see a little applause coming from Elizabeth. Um, I guess this brings us to the end of our program tonight. Thank you so much, Liz. That was fascinating and positive. Wonderful to hear.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks for being a great co-host.
We'll be back in February with Lecture Me. We'll be live at Hazel McCallion Central Library with new exciting lectures that we've already talked about. In the meantime, your feedback is always appreciated. If you want to share feedback, please fill out a survey. And you can scan that QR code to do that. Good night, everybody. Hope to see you in the new year.
Thanks again.